Welcome back once again, friends. In this video, we are going to look at some very interesting string methods in Python. These methods allow us to sort of play with the case of the strings, right? Which means that, if there's a string which is lowercase, we can, for example, convert that to uppercase or an uppercase string to lowercase and some combinations thereof. So specifically, we're going to look at the lower method. We're going to spend a lot of time looking at this method, but as we go along, we'll also discuss the other methods, for example, capitalize, upper, title, and say swap case. All of this we will do in context of the activity we are building, which is this Prof's Grumpy Assistant. Premise is that you want to meet a prof, but you ended up running into his assistant who asks you a question, and in fact, we can go to see what question has been asked, right? So the question that has been asked is, okay, please tell me what action words are called in English. Now, we may very well know that the answer to this question is verbs. However, we may have different ways to answer this. So, for example, somebody might answer it as VERBS, where every letter is a small letter. Somebody else may answer it as VERBS, in which every letter is a capital letter. Somebody else might answer it as V, like capital V, and then R, VERBS, right? Now, all these are in fact correct answers, and we should declare them as correct answers. However, unlike Scratch, right? In Python, these are in fact different strings, right? Now, why did I say unlike Scratch? Because remember, if I just take you back to, for example, this long back, we have done a quiz activity in Python, in Scratch, sorry, and we had, one question where we had this thing, what is the capital of India, right? And we had say answer is Delhi or New Delhi. And what we realized is that in Scratch is very forgiving. Even if somebody answered D with a small, like Delhi with a small d, it accepted that as a correct answer. However, that's not the case in Python. In fact, like I said, this string is different from, let's say, VERBS, right? So the question that comes up is that when we are building a quiz activity, how do we process this answer so that we can make a comparison, or we can make a judgment on whether this is right or wrong, right? Now, one possibility you might think is that I can list out every possibility out there, right? But that's not practical, because it's just wasteful, right? Because there's so many letters and you can't say, okay, this can be capital, this can be small, and so on and so forth, right? So that's a wasteful activity. Instead, what we will do is that we will convert this answer into lowercase, right? So even if the user answers, for example, verbs, we are going to convert it in a way to lowercase, so that then we can compare whether whichever way the user had answered, right? How do I do that? Well, it turns out that in strings there's a method called lower. I already talked about it. To call that method, I just need to do something like this. Okay, so I'm going to say print, just so that it displays on the screen. I'm going to say print answer dot lower, and then two brackets. All right, so this is the syntax. Of course, I must close the bracket for the print. Now, if I did this, notice what will happen. I get verbs, which is this capital V has been converted into a small v, right? Now, again, I want you to pay close attention to the syntax here. Here it is answer. The reason is the name. Reason is that the name of the string was answer, right? So remember, input returns a string that we called as answer, and now we are calling answer dot lower, and then these two brackets, right? So it's always the name of the string dot, like a full stop, then the name of the method, and then in the end we must put these two parentheses, right? Now, the question that comes up is, why do I need this parentheses, and what happens, let's say, if I were to miss these parentheses, right? So let's say for some reason I miss these. What is going to happen is that I'm going to get a command, I'm going to get a statement like built-in method lower of string object at certain memory location, right? Now, how do I understand what's going on here, right? uh, Basically, what's happening is that string is an object. Now, you don't have to worry too much about what that means, but think of it like anything which has certain capabilities, right? Now, these capabilities are the different methods. So, for example, we have a capability that I can convert this string to a lowercase, to an uppercase, and so on, as we'll see later. And for every string that I create, this capability exists, right? So if I, let's say, just tell you answer.lower, it tells me, yes, such and such a capability exists. There's a method, built-in method. It's called lower, and it resides as this memory address, right? But we are not interested in this. In fact, what we want is that we want this particular capability to be executed, which means that we want this method to be implemented for us, and we want to see the outcome of it, right? And if we want to do this, then we must put this the ending brackets, right? So the, in short, the two ending brackets ensure that you get the outcome of this particular method, not the location of this method, because that is not really of interest to us at this point, at least, right? So we just want to know what happens when I convert this to lower. right? And that outcome is indeed verbs, right? Now we can take one more example. For example, let's say, I answered, please tell me what action words are called in English. Let's say I answered VER, VER, and then say BS, right? Now again, that becomes my answer. So if I just did print answer, certainly that is VER BS. But if I said print answer, again, I'll go answer dot lower, and then I'll put these two brackets. So those two brackets are important, as we just saw. It's going to convert this into a lowercase, right? So every letter becomes lowercase, and then given that this has happened, now it is easy for me to go and compare this, let's say, with this string called verbs, right? And say set up an if condition. Now, before I wrap this up, I want to just highlight to you some, let's say some other methods which are quite similar to lower, but they have, similar, let's say, similar in nature, right? So which allows to change the case, right? So first, of course, we saw lower, which converts string to a lowercase. So if I give the word verbs, it converts it to verbs, right? So when I call word dot lower, remember the string name dot lower, and then followed by these two brackets, right? Everything becomes lowercase, right? I can have a capitalized method which allows us to convert the first letter of the string to uppercase, right? So if I give, for example, temperature, it will become temperature, right? With a big T. Again, notice word dot capitalize and with these two brackets. Swap case does, swaps the case. So lowercase becomes uppercase becomes lowercase, and so on and so forth. So if the word was, let's say, A, B, C, D, A and D being capital, the output after swap case would be small a, big B, big C, small d. And yeah, so notice how the cases have got swapped. Yeah. Next is title. Title converts the first character of each word to a uppercase, right? So this is quite interesting. So let's say I gave phrase is I like Python. L and P are small letters. If I made phrase dot title, again, I put this closing brackets. I mean, put these small brackets. I'm going to get I like Python with L and P both having become capital. Now, similarly, there is an upper method which is just kind of like a reverse of the lower method. It converts everything to an uppercase, right? So if I were to have like big A, small b, small c, d, the outcome of this will be A, B, C, D, right? Just like this is kind of like, really the converse, or it's like some kind of dual of the lower method, right? Now, once again, please do not try to memorize this, because that is going to be very taxing. It's not going to be fun also. Instead, try using this in your projects, in your activities, or just by experimenting with this, right? The more you play with this, the more you get comfortable with these, you'll find that these things start making a lot of sense, and they're actually quite useful as well, right? So I hope you found this interesting. I'm going to see you in the next video. Take care. Thank you so much. Bye bye.